up a dive. Feel the vibe, get ready to ignite. Untold stories in the airways, flying through the night. Experience voices, tales so bold. Streaming live, the truth unfolds. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild and variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can't hide. Aliens in the attic, UFOs in the sky. Cryptids lurking, oh my, oh my. Ghosts in the hallway, whispering your name. The paranormal, the unexplained. Become a VIP, get the inside scoop. Unlock the mysteries, be part of the group. Live streaming stories, they're talking to you. Super chats buzzing, join the crew. Untold Radio Network, where secrets come alive. New episodes daily, the mysteries thrive. Great guests, super chat, it's a wild and variety. Share and subscribe, join the side where truth can hide. So if you've got the guts and you want to explore, tune into the Untold, it's what you're looking for. From aliens to ghosts and all that's unseen. Untold Radio Network, where the world's mysteries convene.
Good morning, monsters, and welcome to Monsters on the Edge. I am your host, Barnaby Jones, here on the Untold Radio Network. We have a great show here today. Today's show is pre-recorded. It is, should be, hopefully, when this comes out, it should be Memorial Day, and I hope that you guys are all out enjoying Memorial Day and doing whatever it is that you guys can. And if you're tuning in live, thank you so much for sharing this holiday with us today here on the Untold Radio Network. As always, on any pre-recorded show, I want to make sure that you guys know that right off the bat. So if you're leaving questions or comments in the show notes or in the comments section and we're not answering them, that's why. We are pre-recorded. The show is airing live, but we're actually not here. We're out doing Memorial Day things. So with that being said, guys, this coming weekend is the Marinette Menominee Bigfoot and Paranormal Convention, June 1st in Marinette, Wisconsin. Myself, Chad Lewis, Doug Hychek, Rich Daniels will all be out there speaking in Marinette. It's going to be a great event. Tickets are available online in advance for $15 or $20 at the door. If you guys can't make it out to this event and still want to hear the speakers, don't worry. For $5, you can get a virtual ticket, and it will be streamed live to wherever you are. Live, you get to hear all the speakers throughout the day, and you won't miss a thing. But guys, coming up next weekend is the Chicago Paranormal Convention put on by Mr. Jack Chavez. He is an amazing presenter, and he has got this event once a year out there. It is going to be on Joliet Road, Countryside, Illinois. It's only $1 to get in, and there are some great speakers, including myself, going to be there, and my guest today. So, guys, we are going to get right into that. All right, guys. Today, my guest is J. Nathan Couch. He grew up in the foothills of northern Georgia's Appalachian Mountains. Because of the area's rich tradition of ghost stories and folklore, he developed a passion for the bizarre and unexplained. Nathan continually lives in the shadow of Milwaukee. Continually. Well, I hope he continually lives. Currently lives in the shadow of Milwaukee. He's authored several books, written for Scary Monsters magazine, has appeared on the Travel Channel and History Channel, and when he's not writing about ghosts and monsters, he has a wife and a cat. So, without any further ado, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome to the show, J. Nathan Couch. Welcome to the show.
Hi. Thank you.
How are you doing? I love the last line. When you're not writing about ghosts, you have a wife and a cat. Can you explain that?
Well, I got married once and then we adopted a cat. So, I mean, yeah, that's really all there is to know about my personal life. I'm married. I have a cat. Got
Awesome.
lots of nerdy stuff behind me. That's pretty much all there is to it.
Nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with that. I was reading the bio and I'm just like, that's all right then.
yeah, that's pretty much all there is to me, other than what you've already said.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. Well, I gotta admit, I have been excited to have you on the show. I have not had a guest on to talk anything Goatman. I always try and broaden the spectrum here because there are so many shows about Bigfoot, and I always try and reach out to different lake monsters and thylacine and all the other researchers. And I'm so excited to finally have you on here and talk about the Goatman and stuff. So you are one of the best people probably to talk about this because you have an entire book, Goatman, Flesh or Folklore. So tell us what got you specifically into the Goatman.
Well, my wife was working at a local historical society, and I attended one of their events. It was a Halloween event, and there were storytellers, and they told the story of Goatman. Here, the Wisconsin version of Goatman, which obviously is where I'm living, and I wanted to know everything about that I could. And I started writing a book about local legends and haunts and paranormal experiences. And I never expected to actually talk to anybody who had spoken to Goatman, or excuse me, who had seen Goatman. But then all of a sudden, I get an email and here's an eyewitness. And, that account appeared in my first book, Washington County Paranormal. Washington County is about a little bit north of Milwaukee. And, basically that kind of set me on fire. And then after that book, I started researching everything I could about Goatman. And I very quickly found out that Goatman or things very similar to it are seen all over the country. And nobody had ever put this information together. It's all very regional. The stuff about Goatman would appear in Haunted Kentucky or Weird Wisconsin, but I wanted to put together an overview of everything and really get in there and research the topic.
Wow. Very cool. Specifically though, like, why Goatman? Are you interested, like you're interested in all these other things too, as well as like paranormal and stuff like that? What drew you just to Goatman though?
I think it was just the bizarreness of it. Just the idea that this thing was allegedly seen numerous times around the countryside, mere miles from my home, really like, wow, I got to know everything about this. And once I started finding one thing, I started finding more and more and more, and I just got deeper and deeper into it. And I think it was basically just what a strange creature this is.
Absolutely. Let's back up a little bit here. And can you describe what this creature is, what it looks like, what some of the sighting reports picture it as?
The most common is a bipedal hirsute creature with the head of a goat and the legs of a goat with hooves. Otherwise, it's humanoid pretty much from the waist up to the head. Some versions of it have him being a hairless torso, like very human-like, maybe even a human head, but the lower half of a goat walking on two legs. He's always on two legs. And then there's creatures very much like Goatman who look very different. There's a creature called Sheep Squatch who it basically looks like a Bigfoot with ram's horns. And it varies. A lot of the sightings out of Maryland describe what sounds like a Bigfoot. So it varies greatly, but the classic image is the head and lower half of a goat.
Awesome. Well, let's start at the beginning here. I know there's a lot of like folklore and mythology for anybody that, is familiar with this. When you talk about the description of this, people that are familiar with like the mythologies and that, you have like the Greek god Pan or satyrs. So you have a very rich history of this creature dating back, all the way through written history and stuff. Can you talk about a little bit about where this creature came from? Any North American like tribal lore or anything like that with it?
Well, yeah, obviously, you just talked about the ancient world. There was all these beliefs in Pan, and Pan is just the tip of the iceberg. It seems like almost every culture that we know about their mythology had some kind of horned or antlered deity or spirit. Is very common. Down the line, when Christianity was trying to convince people their ways were wicked and they needed to convert to Christianity, the devil was depicted as looking like these horned or antlered creatures. And then all the way up until present day, people are still seeing these things. Excuse me. I only know of one instance of a local tribe having of Native Americans having a belief in a creature like this. I believe it was the Powhatan Indians in the Virginia area. Early European explorers claimed that they would, put antlers or horns on themselves and draw these images of a horned creature on themselves and have some type of ritual or something like that. And there also is some various mounds located around the United States. They're called man mounds. The interesting thing about them, other than they're man-shaped, is that most of them, if not all of them, have what appears to be horns or antlers. And that is from, some people think it's from, a type of folk hero to these various tribes, or maybe a shaman wearing a buffalo headdress or something of the like. But the people who built the mounds, we know almost nothing about them. We know things about them archaeology wise, but we assume that they're the ancestors of the more contemporary tribes, but very little is known. So we don't even know if these mound builders, and that is what they're called, if they had any sort of folk hero that had horns or anything like that. So it's just kind of being extrapolated from what we know about more current tribes.
Interesting. So we've talked a little bit about, there's sightings in Wisconsin here. I'm in Wisconsin too, if you didn't know.
No, I didn't.
I'm up Fox Valley area, Appleton, Oshkosh area. So
I visited often.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been to Milwaukee often. So we have, I believe it's Hogsbeck Road, right? Here in Wisconsin.
Yeah, there's a couple. Hogsback Road and Goatman Road are both located in Washington County. Both of them have a reputation of being what's the correct word here? Lovers lanes, if you will, like parking spots somewhere where you take your partner if you live with your parents or have a roommate. And a curious thing about this is most of the legends about Goatman start or center around a lover's lane, and folklorists classify Goatman as a lover's lane urban legend, alongside, you know, the hook man or the dead boyfriend urban legend. And those, actually, all three of those legends have a lot of similarities. So, Hogsback Road is probably the most popular of all of them around here. And it's a really treacherous road. It's a very old road. It was built, it existed in the 1860s. I don't have the exact date in my head at the moment. But this thing is as old as the Civil War, and there's a legend about him here on this treacherous, you know, road with all these steep drop offs that date back to the Civil War. Supposedly, right after the war ended, there was a Wisconsin soldier. He had gotten married to his girlfriend, and they were traveling along this treacherous road to go see. Well, or rather, to go move into their new home, and it was at night. Something happened to the wagon wheel; it broke. They were stranded, and they did what you never want to do in these situations. They split up. He left his new wife in the wagon, and then he was going to go off to a nearby farm if he could find one to get some help to repair this wheel, and after the longest time, he hadn't returned. She being the wife, she started hearing a lot of noises off in the distance. She was hoping maybe it was him coming back, but actually, she looked out the canopy. The legend says, and as far as I know, this is a legend. I don't have any documentation to verify this ever happened, but she looked out the canopy of the wagon, and she saw silhouetted in the light of the moon this half man, half goat. It was sniffing the air like it was looking for something. She hid and started, praying and being terrified like a normal person would. And then it never came for her. And when sunlight came, she decided she had to go find her husband or find anyone. She didn't want to be alone in this place anymore. And she spotted hooves walking off into the distance. For some reason, she followed them. I don't know why you would. And she reached this giant tree, and she saw a liquid falling, and she looked up, and there was her husband who'd had his throat torn out. And so the legend has him as a very violent creature.
Wow. Now, have you gone out to any of these locations and looked for these things, like any sightings or anything like that?
I've visited all the locations that I can get to easily. All the most of the Wisconsin areas. There's rumors that he appears way up on in Green Bay on tribal land, but I don't really know much about it, which is why it wasn't in the books. People don't want to talk about it, apparently. I've been told by several members of the local Native American population that you just don't talk about it. It's very like they don't talk about it. So don't know much about that one, but I also have visited the Pope Lick Trestle in Louisville, Kentucky. Well, actually Jeffersonville, Kentucky, outside of Louisville, and that's a very famous one.
Absolutely. You want to talk a little bit about the story behind that one?
Sure. I always like to say that this is the only recorded instance of Goatman actually having killed someone, at least in a roundabout way. Pope Lick Trestle is this, I forget the exact measurements. I think it might be 500 feet across, and it's like maybe 200 feet up in the air. I'm just estimating. Terrible, terrible drop down. So long. And it's kind of like that Stephen King movie Stand By Me, or where they're crossing this giant train trestle. The train comes, so they have to beat it. A local dare is Jeffersonville and Louisville is to go out here on this trestle, and you will allegedly see Goatman. A lot of people think that the trestle is not in use because it looks like it's in disrepair. Doesn't seem like it runs anymore, but the trains come through there loud and often. But the reason no one hears them coming is the acoustics of the area. There's lots of hills. So by the time you hear the train, it's coming around the bend. And if you're on the middle of that trestle, there's no way you're going to beat the train because they're flying through there. It's not a slow moving passenger train. These are freights that are just tearing through. And, you can't jump off it. Well, I think one person might have survived dropping off it, but he was severely injured. And only one person, and this was very recently, like a couple of years ago, one person actually managed to hold on long enough hanging over the edge for the train to pass. It takes a very long time for these large trains to clear this big expanse. So most people, the people who have tried to hang off the edge, almost all of them perished. And I was just going to say, and Goatman, I can't say Goatman actually caused these deaths, but at least the legend of him and the existence of the legend definitely led to the deaths.
Absolutely. It hasn't aired on our YouTube yet, but we actually got a chance, the Caps team, to go out and investigate the Pope Lick Trestle, and it is a big trestle, very high, very long. Again, I don't know the exact measurements, but it is huge.
Yeah, when I got under it or near it on the shoulder road, I wasn't going to go anywhere near those tracks. So many people have lost their lives on them, and just looking up at it, terrifying. I don't know who in their right mind would go up there. Yeah. I guess you have to be young and feeling immortal. You can the gaps between those railroad ties. It looks like you could almost fall right between them.
Oh yeah, mm-hmm. Yeah. We did not obviously go up there. We sent the drone up there to get some footage from above and that. But yeah, it's definitely. I want to point out for anybody that's listening and stuff. Don't go up there. The whole thing is the Goatman lures you up onto the trestle to kill you and stuff. And we were there filming, and we did some paranormal and stuff there as well. But we were there for probably maybe hour and a half doing what we were doing, and there was no train there. And right when we were leaving, we heard this like low rumble and looked up, and it was right there. Yep. So you are absolutely right. You do not hear it coming. We were on our way back to the parking lot across the street, and it just came barreling through there. So it is definitely a dangerous place. But yeah, absolutely.
Oh, yeah, it's terrifying, and people are still going up there and getting killed. It was just, I feel like it was only 2 or 3 years ago, teenage couple went up there, and he was the boyfriend was the only one who had ever successfully dangled from the trestle and survived, but she did not, and she got hit by the train, and unfortunately they found her a couple miles down the track. She did not survive. So people still doing it, and a lot of these people, some of them, one couple that got hit, they were from out of town, so they didn't know it was still in use. It looks like it's not in use. They went up there. They were actually killing time until they were going to go to Waverly Hills. So they're obviously paranormal buffs, and they both got killed. So
yeah. There is as of, let's see, was it last year? I think we were there. There's a big memorial to the last girl that passed away there. I can't remember her name offhand, but she was the last one.
10 years, I don't think so.
Yeah. So absolutely. Well, moving on to a lighter topic.
Yeah. That's one of the most grim stories in my book. There are some that are a little more grim. Well, at least one. But yeah, for the most part, the legends say Goatman kills people, but as far as we know, he hasn't directly caused anybody to die. So
yeah, thankfully, yeah, it's more the legend itself that ends up killing people, and that's unfortunate. A lot of the times these people, by all means, go to the trestle, check it out, see the location stuff. It's really cool. There is walking trails and stuff there, but don't go on it. That's just terrible.
They have a tiny little fence around it. At least they did when I was there, and it looks like it stops no one. I don't know why they don't have it more protected than it is, because anybody can really get up there, and don't get on the tracks.
Awesome. I think we've well covered that. I'm very happy with that. So
you can't stress it enough.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's see. So besides these two, you talked about them being all over the United States, up in New England, and that, and around the world. So where else are these things being seen? What other locations have these creatures?
The one of the most famous ones, obviously, is the Pope Lick monster, who's was alternately known as Sheepman more than Goatman, but he looks like a classic Goatman type creature. Then there's probably the most famous is the Goatman of Bowie, which is said to be looking like a classic Goatman, but almost all of the sightings just report a hirsute ape-like humanoid. I think I've only found one, maybe two sightings from that area where they actually claim that it had horns and hooves. For the most part, Bigfoot type sightings. A lot of albino Bigfoot type sightings are seen in areas where Goatman allegedly hangs out. I don't know what that's about. Could just be a coincidence. There's the Beast of Billowhack, which I think is in Oxnard, California, which is your classic Goatman type creature. Is supposed to lurk in a building in an abandoned lemon orchard there. The Lake Worth monster, which is right there in the whole Dallas Fort Worth area. He said to have been spotted numerous times through a car wheel, like a wheel with a tire on it, not just a tire, down an embankment at after a search party that had him cornered, and obviously chased them all off. That one, only the initial couple of sightings described that as looking like a Goatman, but then it turned into more of like a albino type, Bigfoot type creature. And a more classic Goatman type creature was seen actually in Dallas by, I'm blanking, and I want to say maybe it's White Rock Lake. I haven't talked about this one in a good long while, but there's a lake there in Dallas. It's in the book and probably in lots of other places online. But this is actually a Nick Redfern story. He talked to someone and he allowed me to put it in the book. And someone was jogging around that lake, and they felt an overwhelming sense of panic, which obviously that goes back to the whole mythological thing. Pan's name, panic. That's the Pan is the root word for panic, because allegedly if you disturb Pan, he would cause this uncontrollable fear. So she felt this. She said it felt like a panic attack, which she had never had before. And she looked over to the side of the trail and saw this classic Goatman-like creature standing there. It smiled at her. I believe it took a couple of steps toward her, and then it vanished in a puff of smoke. And a lot of these Goatman type creatures, eyewitnesses will usually report some type of supernatural ability they have.
Very interesting. All right, we are going to take a really quick break here for station identification. We are talking with J. Nathan Couch. He is going to be a speaker this coming next coming weekend, Saturday, June 8th in Chicago at the Chicago Paranormal Convention, and as well as myself and some other great people are going to be there. So we are going to take a really quick break here, and we'll be right back.
Show your support for the Untold Radio Network family of shows and join in on the conversation by using super stickers and super chats on YouTube. Got a question you want answered? Ask it live via a super chat and get real-time responses from our show's knowledgeable hosts and guests. Help keep the Untold Radio Network shows running strong. We need your support. Send your super chats and stickers now.
All right, guys, we are back here with J. Nathan Couch, the author of Goatman, Flesh or Folklore. And as I said, he is going to be a speaker this coming weekend in Chicago. I want to remind everyone, thank you so much for being Super Chat members. And here on the Untold Radio Network, we really appreciate your support. And if you guys have any questions or comments in the comments section, I would like to remind you that we are not live in the studio here today. It is Memorial Day, and this show is pre-recorded. So if we're ignoring your questions or comments, please don't take it personal. This is airing live, but we're just not actually live. So just want to make sure everybody knows that. And so being that we're not live, can you let everyone know where can people reach out to you? Where can people get a hold of you? Are there any other events coming up besides Chicago that you're going to be at?
Well, what information there is about me out there can be located at jnathancouch.com. I have links to old podcasts and interviews I've done. I've got some blogs up there. There's sightings on that blog that were reported to me after Goatman, Flesh and Folklore came out. So you can really only find them on that blog, or maybe on a dozen YouTube channels by now. I don't know. but that sort of thing. I have an event in October. I don't have the date with me. I'm going to be in the Louisville area for Goatman Fest, which is sort of a Goatman film festival, and I'll be one of the speakers that are there. It's a couple weeks before Halloween. And then I run a ghost tour in Washington County, the downtown West Bend Ghost Walk. That happens on irregular dates. We generally do a lot of them in October, and usually at least one or two each month in the summer and fall months.
That's Washington County, Wisconsin.
Yes, Washington County, Wisconsin. Yep. I forget there's like a Washington County in almost every state.
Yeah. Absolutely. All right. So I was going to say something else and I completely forgot what it was. Well, let's move on here. So we talked about what this thing is. We talked about where it's sighting and stuff. And you said that when you wrote this book, you didn't expect people to actually come forward and, talk to anyone that has seen these things, but you have. So tell us what you can. What have people seen? Where have there been like any recent sightings, or what's the most recent sighting that you've taken?
Well, the first witness who started my whole fascination with Goatman is a man named Jason Miller, who lives in the area of Washington County, Wisconsin. And he contacted me. I put out a bunch of social media requests asking for people who had ghost stories and creature sightings to contact me, because I was compiling this book I was working on. He was one of the people that contacted me. And he was over near Goatman Road, which is in Kewaskum, Wisconsin. That's a different road than Hogsback Road we were talking about earlier. It's basically a very rutted, rocky dirt road that leads off of the main drag there and goes into the Milwaukee River State Floodplain Forest, I think is what it's called. And it dead ends back there. And it's another lover's lane, an active lover's lane. When I went there to investigate, there were some couples. I gave them their privacy. And you can also hunt back there in those woods, and that's what Jason Miller was doing. He got there before sunup. He went through the woods. He got up in his tree stand. It was in early fall. He was doing some bow hunting, and he was in his tree stand. The sun had just came up, so it was okay to hunt. And he heard this noise coming, and he thought it was going to be this huge deer. It sounded very loud. So he knocked his arrow and got ready to fire, and what walked out into the clearing was this half man, half goat type creature. This version of Goatman was the kind of the classic satyr or faun from mythology or Pan, where it was a human. I believe he described it as being a bare-chested male from the waist up, man's head and face, long gray beard, but with horns protruding from the head. And then the lower half was like a grayish brown fur with backwards bending legs and hooves of a goat or a creature like that. And he actually said this thing was speaking. It was swearing, saying very not good things. And it was complaining about trespassers. Apparently it didn't see him, or I don't even know if it was talking about him, but because it just went off from the clearing and on its way back into the woods. And He waited for a good long time. Before he got down out of the tree stand, he was going to be 100% certain this thing was gone. And then he climbed down and ran out of there. And the last time I spoke to him, he hadn't been back. I'd also interviewed a gentleman who said he saw the Pope Lick monster. Sheep man is what they called it. This was he was an older gentleman. I feel like the sightings occurred in the 1960s. He saw on 2 different occasions at 2 different bridges this white albino looking Bigfoot creature lurking about. And then there's unfounded reports in that area, which are not my discovery, of this thing having attacked motorcyclists and chased cars and things of that nature. And those bridges that he saw them at were very near Pope Lick Trestle.
Interesting. Going back to your first one, I absolutely love that story that this Goatman is coming through swearing and complaining about trespassers. That's my favorite Goatman story right now.
There was a lot of words he couldn't make out. And I don't know if this thing was talking. He just said it was swearing. So I don't know if it was talking or if he could just hear it, but it wasn't speaking. I don't know. But that I would definitely say that's a supernatural ability for a thing like this. You never hear people who've seen Bigfoot and like, oh, it's talking to them. I mean, maybe there's a couple of sightings like that. I don't know, but I've not ran across them. So most of the sightings of Goatman make it sound like it is a paranormal creature rather than a cryptid in most cases.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that is very like satyr behavior, like the way that you see it depicted in a lot of the movies and stuff, very kind of surly trickster kind of character, and to have it just come swaggering through the woods complaining about people in there and swearing, and it's very interesting. I mean, how many stories do you hear about a Bigfoot? We hear like the mind speak and stuff of that, where they're told go out, get out, or don't take a picture, stuff like that, but you never hear of one like swearing at people. So
a connection I made very early on is satyrs and fawns. They're very lusty creatures. They like wine, women, and song. The satyrs in particular hung out with the god of wine, Dionysus, and they pursued these other nature spirits who were a female nature spirit. There's really no such thing as a female satyr in mythology. These female nature spirits are called nymphs. And and if they couldn't find nymphs, they found interest in human women. So it's interesting that something that looks like one of these mythological creatures is seen by a lover's lane, where people are, getting friendly with one another, and maybe alcohol's involved.
Very interesting. Very interesting. I've never made that connection before. That's cool. So you said that there's no female satyrs. I guess I kind of never thought about that.
Yeah, there are satyresses in some literature, but they were an invention of poetry. Previous, like in the actual real mythology, the male nature spirits of Greece were these fawns, and the females were the nymphs. And the satyrs originally actually in Greece looked just like handsome men with a horse's tail and a horse's hooves. But when Greek mythology got Romanized, satyrs got mixed in with fawns, and they started being described as more goat-like.
So what is difference between a fawn and a satyr?
There really isn't a lot. The fawns hung out with the god Faunus, who is basically the Romanized version of Pan. These Roman and Greek gods are all very, very similar. And once the Romanization occurred, all these things kind of got blended and merged together. So they're pretty much not a lot of difference between a faun and a satyr. The way they behave, it's just now, the horse-like aspects of the satyr are kind of got removed in future artwork and literature going forward, and they've started looking like these fawns.
Interesting. So you've gone out looking for these things. Have you found any kind of evidence? Like, have you followed up like any recent reports?
Um, I've been out in the woods a lot. I love being out in nature. Um, I have not seen any evidence directly of Goatman or anything of the like, but there was a fairly recent sighting. It actually occurred right after the book got published, or it was already finished and about to be published. I forget exactly the timeline, but a woman named Mindy who lived near Hogback Road, um, over by the Holy Hill Basilica, which that whole area around Hogsback Road
Mhm.
and this basilica, which for people who aren't Catholic, it's a really beautiful church.
Mhm.
I'll just leave it at that because I'm not Catholic, so I can't tell you exactly what the difference is between a church and a basilica. But it's the basilica is supposed to have all these healing properties, miraculous healing properties, and things like that. But she lives near this basilica. She's driving home just a couple miles from Hogsback Road when this thing darts out in front of her car. She slams on her brakes and she sees this hairless creature with kind of saggy gray white skin on two legs with a humanoid form, bald oval kind of shaped head. She couldn't see its face because it blocked the glare of her headlights, sort of like this with both arms. It was so close to the hood of her car. I mean, she came within inches of hitting this thing, that she couldn't see what its legs were like. And it ran off into the woods once it realized it hadn't been hit. And it terrified her and her daughter. Um, she went, as soon as she got home, she drew a sketch of this thing. She contacted me about 6 months later because one of her friends had happened to go on a ghost tour I was leading. And when you see something like this, you don't really know who to tell. So I'll call that guy. He talks about strange things. And so they emailed me and sent me the picture. And I believe the drawing is on my blog under Strange Creature Sighting near Holy Hill. It gives you a lot of, I don't know, when I first saw it, it made the hair on the back of my neck stand up. I'm not easily spooked. I watch horror movies constantly, read horror books, go to all these haunted places. I've investigated them, visited them. And it really bothered, I won't say it bothered me, but it made me feel strange and uneasy. And yeah, I wasn't able to do really any investigating because it was months after it happened, and rain and evidence that's outside doesn't last long.
Mhm.
But it left a really, really big impression on Mindy, and both Mindy and I appeared on a episode of In Search of Monsters. Is the Wendigo episode, so that's a good way to to hear it from Mindy's own mouth. Um, I don't really think it was a Wendigo, um, but it is sort of mystery creature. It's hard to classify. She did say that the knees of the creature bent backwards, she said like a dog's. But obviously, a goat or a sheep or a deer or anything like that has those same knees that bend in the opposite directions of humans. Um, she had actually never heard of Goatman. I theorized, well, you live next to this place where Goatman is alleged to be. She had never heard of Goatman. It was a whole new information to her. She really didn't know what to classify it as. That's probably the most dramatic new sighting in this area.
Yeah, for anybody not familiar with Holy Hill in Wisconsin here, it is a very weird place. I mean, we have gotten Bigfoot reports out of that area. We've gotten Dogman reports. There's a infamous case of this road worker that was picking up roadkill and had this creature come and take the carcass out of the back end of his truck, and he sped off and lost one of the ramps out of the back of his truck and everything. And it is
Yeah,
so
and
much activity there.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but that
Oh,
actual sighting was supposedly he described it as a bear with the head of a wolf. So it's something entirely separate from the Dogmen and the Bigfoot and Goatman. And there's been UFO sightings. There's haunting legends in the fields and the woods around the area.
It's definitely a place to look into. I mean, there's so much stuff going on there.
Yeah, it's
Um,
the twilight zone of Wisconsin, I think. And the basilica itself, I don't want to compare, but I don't want to insult anybody by comparing, this basilica to these possible cryptids or paranormal creatures. But the hill itself has been known to have miraculous healing properties. Both Catholics who come there, or just generally sick people who go there on a pilgrimage, have reportedly miraculously been healed, and the natives who used to live in that area prior to Europeans used that location as a holy place.
Very interesting. Possibly like a portal or something that, is allowing these things to come and go, has the healing powers. That's interesting. Very, very interesting
It has
stuff.
a very weird aura. When you're driving around in that area, you feel like anything could walk out of those woods.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. So when people are, we're talking about like actual evidence of this thing and that, what have you heard? Like, what have you heard has been left behind? Have people found footprints? Have there been like hair samples found? Has there been like any kind of like anything left behind of audio recordings or anything like that?
Every now and then I get some possible tracks sent to me, photographic evidence. But the thing is, it's a hooved animal. So deer prints look a lot like what this might be. Even very large ones could just be either a really large deer or a print that's, the animal is running, so the print looks bigger than it actually should be, or a combination of both. So it's very hard to find tracks for something like this. Mostly people report a strange smell that lingers. That Jason Miller sighting at Goatman Road, he said that it had a horrible odor. Said it smelled like, I think, rotting garbage and like dead animals, all kind of mixed together. The Dallas sighting by the lake that I mentioned, that woman said that it actually smelled like sulfur when the creature vanished. Smell seems to be the primary thing left in its wake.
Interesting. We hear a lot of reports of a sulfur smell in like demonic cases and some of these other cryptids and paranormal creatures. Do you have any idea why that would be?
Every Goatman legend, and these are I keep saying legend and sighting, and I mean those two different things, because sometimes this thing is seen, but there's no legend about it. It's just, I saw this, what's going on? And then other times there's these elaborate legends about this thing with origin stories involving weird science and mysticism, where no sightings have been recorded. But the legends of Goatman, there's like 3 versions every place where Goatman is a legend. One is whatever the main story is. Those are all different. The other 2 involve either bestiality, which we won't touch on because that's beyond far-fetched, scientifically impossible, and very gross. And then the other one is some type of deal with Satan or something along those lines. So depending on your worldview, your religious beliefs, your own perspective, obviously something like this, you see it, you're going to think, oh, this looks like the devil. So I've not found any direct correlation between this creature and any sort of. A lot of the legends say, oh, well, there was some dark rituals performed here. I found no evidence of that any place where they've actually been sighted. So that's about as far as it gets with them being described as demonic. And other than, obviously, most of these sightings involve some sort of paranormal ability, like disappearing, or you can hear them talking, or something along those lines.
It's interesting. We're talking about like Pan and Greek and Roman mythology and stuff. And when Christianity grew in popularity and kind of took over all these other things, you already spoke about the origin of Pan being the root of panic. and having that feeling and stuff. Do you think that that's what tied in as far as like why we have the depiction of these demons and the devil and stuff being these panic creatures and that?
Yeah, I mean, I think anybody who's raised, not even in a Christian household, but just in an area with a lot of Christians, is going to see this thing and be like, that must be the devil, because that's what's known more than these ancient gods from mythology or these nature spirits from antiquity. So most people's minds are going to leap immediately toward this is satanic, this is demonic, along those lines. But if these things were being seen hundreds and hundreds of years ago, they would be called, I saw Pan, I saw a fawn. In fact, most of the sightings that occur in Europe, there's not a lot. I mean, there might be a lot, but my book focuses more on the United States. But when I have found instances of someone seeing one in Europe, or especially in the British Isles, they're like, I saw a fawn. I don't call it Goatman.
Interesting. So looking at all the evidence, looking at all these things, from a unbiased opinion, how much of this do you think is just mistaken identity of, we were talking about like a Bigfoot creature or a dogman or something of that nature? Or do you think that these creatures, like what majority do you think is just a mistaken identity, and what do you think actually is possibly these things?
The late great Linda Godfrey used to have a theory, because she was a dogman expert. She thought that maybe these Goatman sightings were misidentified dogmen. A lot of Bigfoot researchers say, people see a Bigfoot in an area where there's a Goatman legend, and so they're probably just misidentifying a Bigfoot. But I can't really accept that, just because dogman and Bigfoot are both unproven entities as well at this point. So I don't like to take one mystery and replace it with another. So then there's also the chance that maybe people are getting scared. They're seeing a big deer or something of those along those lines. But the thing is, usually when they're being seen, they're exhibiting some type of very strange human-like or supernatural-like behavior, or a lot of the places where these things are seen, there's no pre-existing Goatman legend that I'm aware of that could cause somebody to be like, that must be Goatman. They saw whatever they saw. So
absolutely, that's very interesting. I love it. The don't replace one unknown with another. That's very good. And then the other thing that you pointed out earlier as well that I wanted to touch on is you said that there's been no reports of these things on four legs, where we have a lot of reports of Bigfoot down on four legs, and they are very big, bulky creatures when people are reporting these things. And then the Dogman has also been reported down on two legs. And I could see, if they have, a lot of the Dogman have the reported of the ears and stuff, which in the dark people could mistake for like horns or something. But and then with the backwards legs and stuff like that. But I think the very telling characteristic is Dogman have the snout. And nothing that you have said has given any indication that people are seeing like an elongated like goat muzzle, for instance, or anything. It's more of a human looking face. Indications.
Yeah, I mean, there are sightings where they say it has like, when they say it has the head of a goat, it does have the snout and the antlers, or excuse me, the horns. But that's only some of the sightings. A lot of times they have a human-like face with no hair whatsoever. I've never heard of, other than the sightings in Maryland where they are almost always Bigfoot type creatures, I've not heard of any of them having like a hirsute face, just only like a beard if they have any facial hair at all.
Interesting. Awesome. So we talked about you have your paranormal ghost tours as well, that you can find those on your website, correct?
It's not updated for the 2024 season, but you can find the tours on jnathancouch.com, and just keep a lookout there, and it'll get updated.
Very good. And your website is in the show notes for anybody listening. You can go in there and click on that and find a link as well. when you're out there, you've gone to these different locations and stuff, and I got to ask, on a completely unrelated Bigfoot Goatman topic, have you ever come across anything else weird? Have you ever had a Bigfoot sighting or a Dogman sighting or anything that you can't explain when you're out there looking for these things?
I've never had any sort of experience with a cryptid type creature. I have had some paranormal experiences in my life. Probably the most profound of which was near a haunted location, but not at the haunted location I went to see. And I was not looking for a paranormal encounter. I went to Mammoth Cave, which is in it's near Louisville. I believe it's actually Cave City, Kentucky, I think is the name. For those who don't know or maybe aren't American, Mammoth Cave is a huge national park. Mammoth Cave is exactly what it sounds like. It's a mammoth cave. I don't have the statistics on it, but it goes extremely deep into the earth. It was one of the first, I believe it might be the first tourist attraction in the United States. I think that was the beginning of tourism in this country, was when the person who's on the property that Mammoth Cave was on opened it up for public viewing. The ghostly legends of that cave are that you encounter paranormal spirits in the cave. I went to the cave. We took the tour. There's about 100 people on every tour. You're not going to see any kind of ghosts in there if there anything's going on. So after the tour, we just wanted to walk around the park a little bit before it got dark. And we went down this trail called, I believe it might be called Cedar Sock Trail. It's the trail that takes you to basically the area where the caves are formed. The water goes down through the rocks at this area, and over thousands, millions of years, it created Mammoth Cave. So we're walking to it, and it's a little bit before twilight. Still a lot of light. There's a nice breeze blowing, despite it being the middle of summer in Kentucky. And my wife pointed some plants on the side of the trail. I wonder what those are. And I don't know anything about plants, so I was like, I don't know. And so I was just staring at the plants, kind of letting my mind wander, relaxing in the breeze. And she started walking away. I didn't even notice she was walking away. And I saw vividly in front of these plants, a few feet away from me, this human face appear. It was a woman. I'll not forget ever in my life what it looked like. It was just a woman's face, sort of sepia tone, like an old photograph. She had a thin face, angular jaw, thin nose, dark hair with a curl hanging down on her forehead. She didn't interact with me. She didn't move or anything. It was just like somebody took an antique photograph and just placed it in front of my face a few feet away. And then I saw this thing for probably a good second, maybe two. And it's like my brain couldn't process what was happening, because I saw it and I just turned to walk away. And I'm like, holy hell, what did I just see? And I turned back around. It's not there. It wasn't me just seeing some random collection of plants and my mind seeing a face. This was clear as day to me. I can't explain it. I'm not prone to visions, or I daydream a lot, but I don't hallucinate that I'm aware of. So I can't explain it, and it was unreal. Is what it felt like.
Now, you said it looked kind of like like an old photograph. Was it one dimensional, like flat, like a photograph, or was it like 3D, like somebody was standing there?
It was one dimensional. And it kind of had the same kind of tone, and not black and white, but just that sort of kind of yellowy sepia tone. Is very strange. Most of the paranormal activity in that area is reportedly African American spirits. Most of the guides in the early days of that cave were African American, and they actually had built a church inside Mammoth Cave, and they would go down there on Sundays and have church. I don't know if they had mass. I don't know if they were Catholic or if they were Baptist or what. But and that's what you allegedly see in Mammoth Cave is like these spirits of African Americans who are dressed in old time, out of date clothing. And the people who have there are people who have died there of tuberculosis because for some reason they thought the air of the cave would magically cure these poor tuberculosis patients. So they built a little hospital down there in the cave. And when the tourists came through, they just found several dead people there who had died of consumption in the cave. Did not help at all, surprisingly. So I don't know if those people who died there were Caucasian or African American. The face I saw was what I would describe as Caucasian. So
interesting. That's fascinating. Yeah, I have we go down to CryptidCon every year in Lexington, Kentucky, and we stopped and did the Pope Lick Trestle the one year on the way down and stuff. And I've kept looking at the Mammoth Caves down there, but I have not got the chance to go there yet. So,
they're amazing.
Definitely somewhere I'd like to check out.
Then someone needs to see if they're ever in the area.
Very cool. I will definitely have to check it out one of these times. So, awesome, man. Well, thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you in, for us now, it'll be a couple weeks or months before we meet. But next in 2 weeks, I will see you down in Chicago at June 8th at the Chicago Paranormal Convention here. There it is. Oops, a little far. There we go. Chicago Paranormal Convention. So you will be doing a presentation down there, and you're going to be talking about Goatman?
Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if they'll have me talk about any other general paranormal stuff, or if I'm assuming it'll be mostly Goatman related.
Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I look forward to it. And for guys interested in what I'm doing, I am doing a presentation on all the science behind the paranormal, why we use the equipment that we use, what it does, and how science is infected in the paranormal investigations. So there you go. Coming up on June 8th. All right. So thank you so much for coming on. I got your website in the show notes. And anything else you want to add before we head out?
Not really. I mean, other than just I urge everyone, be inquisitive, and if you see any of these creatures, email me. I want to know about it.
That's always the most important thing. If you see something, say something, because for the people out there are people that will believe you. You're not crazy. There's somebody out there researching it, and it would mean the world to Jay Nathan and myself, to have somebody report that, because we can't get answers if we don't know where to look.
Yeah, even if you want to remain anonymous, get that information out there. I'll change your name to Jane Doe or something. I just want to hear these stories.
Jane Doe emails you and be like, don't put that out there.
I'll call her Johnson.
There you go. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today. I really appreciate it, and I look forward to meeting you in person. All
right. Thanks. I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
It absolutely will. Thank you so much, man. Talk to you later.
Yeah, thanks. Bye.
All right, guys, that is our show for this week on Monsters on the Edge here on Monday. Coming up this Thursday, 10 a.m. on the Paranormal Spectrum. My guest is going to be Jack Chavez. He is going to be the presenter of the Chicago Paranormal Convention. He is going to be joining us here on the Paranormal Spectrum on the Untold Radio Network to talk all about paranormal activity in the Chicago area, all about Resurrection Mary and some of the gangsters and all kinds of cool stuff like that. And then, guys, coming up on Monday, it is going to be Tobe Johnson from the Owl Moon Lab is going to be with us to talk all about the stuff going on out there. So, guys, until next time, thank you for joining us. I hope you guys have an amazing Memorial Day, and you guys stay safe. Don't blow off your fingers. Enjoy some hot dogs, and we'll see you on the edge.